Okay, so it's on zero. So that means I'm not included in the one. Talking to myself right now. Oh well. I don't know if anyone ever watches these in playback, or if that one is me. I don't know. Anyway, if anyone's logged in, please say hello so that I know you're there. Just about 8:10 now, UK time. Um, I might repeat this anyway, but I'll just say it. I think it's ironic that I'm calling this live stream because I actually want to say something about a live stream at my local cinema. So I've just been to my local cinema, Empire Cinema Sunderland. I was going to watch, say, four people have logged in. Welcome, everyone. Please say hello if you're here. Yeah. Hey, Declan. Good to see you, mate. Yeah, so here's the thing. It's ironic, right? Calling this live stream. I was going to see a live stream at my local cinema, the David Attenborough documentary film. Well, I didn't know it was live stream. Anyway, I go to pay, card only. It's the only cinema in Sunderland, big multiplex. Go pay, card only. £17.50. £17.50. So suffice to say, not a chance. I wasn't going to pay that. At my cinema, a standard ticket is £5.99. Well, I don't have fizzy drinks, but I've got a vitamin C dissolvable tablet. So I guess that counts as a fizzy drink. But that's just crazy. 17.50 for a flipping. Can't get over that. And this is the bit that bugs me. The buggers don't mention it on the website. One of my main pet peeves is when prices are just hidden. So, you get there, and I walked the whole way there. It's a good 20 minutes walk. And then 17.50. I'm not tight. I wouldn't have minded paying a little bit more if it was live stream, but flipping 17.50. So it's a pity. I wanted to see it, but that's that. I can catch David Attenborough on TV. Anyway, I can't imagine it's that much greater than his standard documentaries. Um, so what happened at the gym, Declan? Was there a hidden cost? You mentioned you had that with gym membership. Did you find there was a hidden cost? I've actually joined my local university gym again, and they're £20 for the month, so that's pretty good. But I've used them before. Um, that's a really random question. What do I think of the idea of an independent Northern Ireland? Well, by independent Northern Ireland, I assume you mean not part of a united Ireland and not part of the UK either. I assume that's what you mean. Um, I think it may have been pondered before as an idea. I don't think it would work. I think Northern Ireland's just too small. Um, and the thing about very small nations is there's, I think, a lot of questions around that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you'd have a very small nation of 2 million people that would be naturally interdependent on the bigger nations of the Republic of Ireland and the United Kingdom. I don't think it's, I mean, anything can happen in the next 10 years. I think there will be implications on Northern Ireland with Brexit. So I don't know. If it's a solution between, going back to the Troubles, I mean, if it's a solution to avoid that, it might be a plausible approach. But I think it's just too small, Northern Ireland. Um, it says it was £11 per month, but didn't say they charge an additional £15 for the first month for joining. Yeah, cheeky buggers. I hate that. I hate hidden costs. It's something that really bugs me. I think companies should be obliged to make costs public, all costs. So they want to charge you £26 altogether. Yeah, that is cheeky buggers. Try your local university, Declan, because sometimes universities or gyms, at least my local university, the gym's open to the public, and they tend to be pretty affordable rates. At least my one is. I assume there would be similar in other universities. £20 per month, and there's no hidden costs. It just is what it is. Um, there's an induction; they give you the key, but that's an upfront cost and it's unlimited. So give that a go. But yeah, I'd be annoyed by that. £11 sounds good then. 15 quid for the first month. That actually sounds counterproductive because you would think that they would want to retain people. So you'd think they'd be putting that upfront cost later on, if anything. But even in shops, when I find items that don't have a price on them, I'm thinking, well, am I supposed to guess this? I volunteer in Bernardo's, and occasionally I find that someone's forgotten to price an item, and I'll raise it because I'm thinking from the customer's perspective, they need to know. What do you think, Carl? Do you think it should be an independent Northern Ireland? What's your thoughts on that? You might think I've got strong opinions because I was born in Northern Ireland, but honestly, I've grown up in England. So although Northern Ireland's still very meaningful for me, totally honest, I don't follow Northern Ireland politics closely these days. Anyone else watching? We've got 5 years at the moment, so welcome everyone. What do you think of hidden costs? Me and Declan have just been discussing hidden costs. I was at the cinema tonight. If you've just joined, 17.50. I can't get over that. £17.50. It was a live stream, but that's just ridiculous. Um, I mean, I don't think I'd pay that price for a standard ticket in London. Probably pay, I guess, a tenner, something like that in London. But it's just mental. Yeah, it's a pity. Did you raise the issue with them, Declan? Did you say, for example, that the website didn't mention it, or um, I mean, is there any way to give some sort of feedback? Because I find that companies, more often than not, they do respond to feedback, and if they didn't, it would be pretty stubborn. Um, but I would have given them some sort of feedback, like pity about the upfront costs or something like that. Um, but the university, like I say, try your local uni because sometimes they have good deals. So viewership is going up and down. I had five, now down to three. Might go up to five again. Don't usually live stream at this time. Have you had or known anyone get screwed over by builders or anything like that? I wish I'd done this. I wish had have done this last year. All right, so yeah. I haven't personally been screwed over by builders. Um, and as far as I know, my parents have been quite fortunate. Um, but the thing with workmen is you never know. For example, recently my washing machine was kaput and the builder came out. Now I wasn't paying it, but that would always make me a little bit wary because you just don't know, and they can't really give you a quote until they know what the problem is. I'd be worried about being in the situation where they do the work, then you have to pay for it, and it could be an extortionate amount. I have to say this was very reasonable. It was only £30. I was expecting it to be about £50 to £70, just because that was my preconceived idea. So I haven't personally been screwed over by builders, but I think it's very plausible. It's very easy to happen. In Sunderland, they have this thing they put through the post, like sort of trade check, I think it's called, where you get tradespeople who are certified. And I think it's a good idea because if someone is a scam artist or a cowboy, as they say in the industry, then the reputation will precede them. People will do negative reviews. So there is a little bit of consumer power in that regard because people can, if they've had a bad experience, give a negative review. This is a bit like TripAdvisor. If you've been screwed over, it would be very possible and very reasonable, I think, to say, well, just be wary of this person. They'll charge you an extortionate amount and not do the job properly. It's a difficult one that because sometimes we just can't know in advance. How about you, Declan? Have you had that problem? I can hear my washing machine. It's going again perfectly, and the problem was very minor. It was just an elastic band stuck in the machine. That's shit. Yeah, I won't read out your comment because people can read it themselves, but yeah, that's a shitty thing to do. Unfortunately, there are just greedy people in this world that don't care about others. Yeah, I agree, Carl. It's the thing about independence, it's always a complex question. It's a romantic ideal, but the way I look at independence in any situation is it comes with responsibility. If Northern Ireland were fully independent, I'll be totally honest, I've grown up in England and on some level, one gets the impression that even after 100 years in the Union, the British Union, there's always a sense that Northern Ireland's somewhere else, even though it's one of the four nations and it's British in many ways culturally, there is still a sense of it being somewhere else. What I mean by that is, take for example, it's just little things, well, maybe not so little. Team GB in the Olympics, right? GB is Great Britain. I feel that snubs Northern Ireland. Or look at the BBC, they talk about the Ireland correspondent, and they almost talk about Northern Ireland in different terms. I mean, maybe I'm going off topic here, but I do get the impression that it's kind of treated like another place, and yet it's definitely got a strong British cultural identity, along with, of course, the Irish cultural identity there as well. Um, I'm not that well placed to talk about politics on the ground, but if a fully independent Northern Ireland was a way forward, I wouldn't be against it totally. Um, and it may even be more plausible than the United Ireland. Because I think with any push for a United Ireland, the Unionists will obviously kick up a big thing about that. They will never take that simply, and the Nationalists will keep pushing for a United Ireland. So an independent Northern Ireland might be the best solution. It's hard to picture right now, and there is a lot of baggage with that, but it may be the only solution. Um, but it is a small place. I mean, to put that in context, Northern Ireland would be about the size of well, it's bigger than Liechtenstein and Luxembourg, but try to think of a comparable country, maybe some of the African states. I'm talking in terms of demographics and size. Um, or maybe Belize. I think it would be about the same as Belize in Central America. So, it's a small place, but a proud place. And I've heard the interesting thing about Northern Ireland is both unionist and nationalist do see Northern Ireland as a unique place. Um, even the nationalists, even some Sinn Féin people. Remember, Jerry Adams used to talk about being a Northerner. Jerry Adams, um, and how he felt Southern nationalists didn't fully understand. So I do feel that that's one of the very few things that Unionists and Nationalists might actually agree on. Something unique about Northern Ireland, whether they see it as British or Irish. So that's an interesting question. Declan, they took the roof off and left it like that, which caused flooding in their house, ceilings collapsed and more. God, that sounds like a nightmare. They took the roof off? Surely, your friends, um, surely her parents could have taken some sort of legal action. I mean, that doesn't sound right. If they paid for that, that sounds like a total nightmare. Pretty much vandalism. Damn, that's scary. There must be something they could have done legally. I don't know, but certainly would have looked at it. The difficulty with builders, of course, is if there's no written contract, I guess, then it's difficult to pursue that course of action. Carl, what's just a random question here? What's cinema prices like in Belfast these days? In Sunderland, it's 5.99 for a standard ticket. Would that be about the same in Belfast these days? I remember the Yorkgate Centre. Is it still open? It's one of my memories as a child. It was a big multiplex, the Yorkgate Centre. Some of my earliest memories of seeing Disney films there in the early 90s during the Disney Renaissance. So is the Yorkgate Centre still there? I imagine the city centre will have one or two big multiplexes. I'm not going to make this one too long, people, because I'm a little tired. Yorkgate's open. Yeah, Yorkgate's one of my earliest memories, actually. For my other viewers, Yorkgate is basically a big multiplex in the middle of Belfast. Got three people logged in right now. So Declan, Carl, is there someone else there? Or is that third person me? I don't know. I'm not sure if like I'm included as a viewer or not. What I would say generally about scams is unfortunately they are out there, not just with builders, with so many things. It pays to be assertive. I'm not one of these people that blame the victim. Some people say, oh, they can get quite smug about it, that, oh, they should have known better, or ultimately, scammers are criminals. That's what they are, and it's a despicable thing to do. Um, but it's not always necessarily scam. Sometimes it's just extortionate prices. So I remember there was a market in Sunderland, and it was like an Italian stall, and they were charging something ridiculous, like pounds for a little bag of sweets because they wrap it up as the Christmas market. I remember being in Italy. Have to be careful in Italy; it's a big problem. I got a coffee. And okay, it was the center of Rome, but so you expect to pay more in a capital city, but the service was quite rude. I got my coffee. I wanted to sit down, and the waiter shooed me away because I wasn't eating. But he was very rude about it, and I wasn't too impressed by that, particularly as I paid. I can't remember what it was, but rude service is something I cannot abide. Yeah, 13 grand. My God. I mean, that's an extortionate amount of money. I'm talking about 1750 tonight. 13,000 is, God, that would just be. Um, I would have done something though. I would have written a very nasty review, or spread the word, and really, because people like that shouldn't be able to get away with it. Even right into the BBC or ITV or someone. You get these programs that expose these people. Not long ago, my dad actually got a very threatening message from, it was some big company. I can't remember if it was British Gas or one of the others, but I think it was a couple of days overpayment, but it was an honest mistake, and they were sending all these threats through the post. And this was in the height of lockdown, and he immediately paid it, but he wasn't happy about the way they handled it. Like, it wasn't just a sort of please pay your bill. It was very threatening. I do think that the big energy companies, people need to, they give them what's the expression? Give them a foot and they'll take a mile. Um, it's a David and Goliath situation sometimes, and it's despicable. And the thing about being screwed over, I haven't been screwed over by builders, but I've been screwed over in other ways. Where I've paid more than the price should have been or something like that. It's not a good feeling. You feel humiliated, you feel like you've been walked over, you feel angry. On the other hand, life has a strange way of balancing out because I've also found on other occasions I have actually been undercharged. Now, I'm honest, like in my local news agents, they want to undercharge me. I think I bought a few newspapers and something else, and they didn't charge for one of the newspapers. So I told the guy it was just a small business. But I remember once in China, a taxi driver just gave me a free lift. When I went to pay the guy, he was like, I think he knew my friend or something. So that was a pleasant surprise. So I guess that's the only reconciliation for that feeling of being screwed over is that at another time in your life you might find that things balance out in a more positive way. But it's difficult because, yeah, and I think I wondered, Declan, is that why they done it? Maybe they were taking advantage of those people, which is disgusting if that's the case. Absolutely reprehensible. But I do think, I don't know how long ago this was, but if it's not that long ago, I honestly think they should do something, maybe write to a consumer watchdog. There's lots of shows around on both BBC, ITV, and so on that expose these sort of things. And someone like that really needs to be exposed. Like write a negative review or something. I must say I don't follow Van Morrison that much. Um, Protests about COVID lockdowns. I don't follow Van Morrison that much, but um, I know a little bit about his politics, so I'm not overly surprised by that. But I have to be honest, I don't know a great deal about Van Morrison, so um, obviously that's topical, it's up to date. What is SSADH, Declan? What is that exactly? Is it kind of is it a learning difficulty or what? What exactly is that? Regardless, whatever, it's despicable. I think I'd be fuming if it was a friend of mine. I really think people like that need exposed. Really are some despicable people out there, and it's very easy to get cynical about human nature. On the other hand, there's a little for every mean-spirited person, there's a lot of decent people. I haven't been to the Titanic Museum yet. It's something I would very much like to see. I was in Belfast actually twice in recent years, 2017 and 2019. Unfortunately, on both occasions, it was for my grandparents' funerals. My grandmother's funeral and my grandfather's funeral. And my other granny died the same year in 2017, but she was from Cullybackey in County Antrim. Um, so unfortunately, the occasion just didn't allow it. I would very much like to see that museum, the Titanic Quarter. I believe it's at Harland and Wolff. I actually have an interesting story regarding the Titanic, which is that the street, my grandparents, they both pass away now. My grandfather passed away last year, had a bed and breakfast in Belfast called Ash Rowan, off Windsor Avenue in South Belfast. And if you know that area, Carl, it's a nice area, nice leafy suburb. Anyway, supposedly Thomas Andrews had lived in their house, none other than the designer of the Titanic. Unfortunately, there was a change in the number plates at some point in the 1920s. So, unfortunately, it wasn't actually the building that they lived in. It was a few buildings away, which I believe is now the Ulster Rugby Club or something like that. Nevertheless, he did live in that street. He was originally from Cumber in County Down. In the big blockbuster film, he was played by the Canadian actor Victor Garber, who famously said, as the ship's going down, young Rose, sorry, I couldn't build you a stronger ship. So we fought for a long time. That man lived in my grandparents' house. Fortunately, he didn't, but it's pretty close by. And if I didn't mention it before, I have another personal connection to the Titanic, which is the day I was born. The 1st of September 1985 was the very, very day that they rediscovered the ship at the bottom of the Atlantic. Severe anxiety and PTSD, that just makes it all the more despicable. Can't imagine that situation helped her anxiety. I mean, it would be bad for anyone, but particularly someone in that condition. I just hope they've managed to move on with their life on some level. I mean, that's, but if these people do it to anyone else, hopefully at some point they'll be exposed. And in my opinion, they should face criminal prosecution for that. Really despicable. Yeah, United 93. Someone actually asked that in the last live stream. United 93 is a very powerful film. I watched it recently. I always think with Paul Greengrass films, particularly that one, the strength lies in the fact that he doesn't use well-known actors. They're all basically all known actors. If anyone doesn't know about United 93, it's basically a true story of the fourth plane that was hijacked on September 11th. And the passengers famously fought back because they gradually realized it wasn't a regular hijacking, as in the hijackers didn't want a money ransom, and they basically took matters into their own hands. There was one passenger, a guy called Todd Beamer, who famously said, "Let's roll." It's a very, very powerful and intense film, and it's done in sort of real time. So I'd recommend it. It's not an easy film to watch. It's very emotionally charged. But that's also true of his other films, Bloody Sunday and Oma, which both deal with famous events in the Troubles. Cynic, that's quite a mouthful. Cynic semial dehydrogenase deficiency. Um, that's it's one can't walk or talk. Sounds pretty debilitating. Yeah, so United 93, if anyone hasn't seen it, saying anyone, I've only got 3 viewers at the moment, but it's a powerful film for sure. And I think because it's done in real time, there's been a lot of films made about 9/11, of course, but the others, like World Trade Center, is more like a standard Hollywood film. It's got big actors, Michael Pena, Nicolas Cage. It's also a good film in its own right, but I think United 93 for me was just very, very hard hitting. It was very, very emotionally charged because you just get that sense of suspense. And they never say a film's like the real thing exactly, but I know there was another film made in the same year, 2006, called Flight 93, which was about exactly the same subject. And I've seen it. It was also powerful, but I think United 93 had the edge. Okay, guys, I'm going to round this up at half an hour because I'm a bit tired, but thanks for logging in. Any more questions in the last few minutes or anything you'd like to comment on? Aviation. Somewhat, somewhat. I'm interested in so many things. Um, Aviation, I wouldn't say I'm a massive enthusiast, but I'm interested enough. I watch, for example, airline investigation and seconds from disasters, those sort of things. Last year, I watched a film called The Aeronaut, which was about a hot air balloon. They were a bit PC with the subject matter because it had a fictional woman instead of a historic man who she was actually based on. But it was a good film. United 93 is definitely a powerful film. It really captured the feeling. Yeah, I totally agree. How are you feeling about everything right now? Everything? I assume you mean COVID or terrorism or sorry, Declan, I wasn't to quite catch you there. Do you mean my personal life or sorry, I don't quite Yeah, so aviation, I mean, I have a journalist mind in a sense, so I have a bit of an interest in almost everything. I think you have to if you want to be in this profession. Not that I'm in it just yet. COVID and political situation in country. Well, the political situation is sort of I don't watch that much news nowadays, which is surprising for me. I watch more international news than national news because national news just always seems to be the same thing. But I do see some cracks appearing. There's an increasing number of protests. My feeling on that is I totally understand frustration. I'm getting sick of the masks. I'm sick of in some ways, of the situation. But I also feel, the likes of QAnon and other conspiracy groups are just being idiots because there have been people who were convinced that COVID was a hoax and they ended up severely sick from the virus. So people need to understand this really is a real thing. I've heard people talking about, for example, the Hong Kong flu of 1968 also left about 1 million people dead. But so people say, oh, there was no lockdown then, there was no masks, etc. But just because there was an ignorance then of what was going on doesn't mean that it wasn't a real thing. Um, my concern is there will be real social disorder. I don't think, in the case of London, I mean, I think it was a big mistake to allow the Black Lives Matter protest. And, the mayor basically allowed that with open arms and then turn around and say, oh, well, other protests are wrong. You either ban them outright or you're consistent. I think that was bad PR. But it's I really feel for the police because they have to take all this crap, to be honest. Especially after the colleague was murdered the other day. Have you been to Liverpool? Me and Mum are planning to go there at some point, hopefully. I'd recommend Liverpool. It's a great city. I've been twice, but it's been a long time. 2003 with my dad and 2008 by myself. Um, I didn't see everything there. I think I briefly looked at the Beatles Museum. There's a Maritime Museum. It's a very photogenic city, some very grand buildings there. And this might sound strange, but I compare it to New York City in the sense that it's a lot smaller, of course, but John Lennon said it's got the same sort of dynamism and energy. It's a special place, Liverpool. I'd recommend it. Recommend Liverpool. Okay, guys, I'm going to round this up because I'm pretty tired. Uh, I'll just answer this last question. What's your opinion on Tommy Robinson? Okay, Tommy. Well, honestly, I have mixed opinions. I certainly wouldn't endorse all his tactics. Let's put it that way. I'm sympathetic to some of his concerns, certainly about grooming gangs. I mean, my city's seen its fair share of problems with that. And I do feel that there's people on the left that are more bothered about Tommy Robinson than they are about Islamic extremism. They need to get their priorities right. On the other hand, I wouldn't fully endorse Tommy Robinson because he is a bit of a shady character. He has got a bit of a violent record. He has a bit of a football casual record, which doesn't exactly help with PR. I think he's quick tempered, which isn't always good because, if you're become a sort of leader of a movement or a figurehead, you need a degree of self control. And sometimes the way he's handled things hasn't always been ideal. Do I think he's the bogeyman that he's made out to be by some? No. Is he far right? It's hard to say because I know that he's personally denounced racism and he has claimed he left the ADL because of their far right. They start getting far right. The problem I have with Tommy Robinson is he sometimes polarizes people that he could work with. An example of this is Majid Nawaz. If you don't know, Majid Nawaz works for LBC. Majid Nawaz is a former Islamist, but he was never actually convicted of terrorism. He just was in his youth pandered with pan-Islamist ideals. Anyway, he now dedicates his life to fighting extremism. Now, for a brief period, he and Tommy worked together. Tommy kind of turned on him, and I'm not sure why. I tried to follow that situation. I think I think Tommy's a bit of a loose cannon, but I don't think he's quite the bogeyman he's made out to be. Nevertheless, I don't think he's above distorting certain stories and swooping in there. For example, there was a situation, I think it was in Leeds or somewhere like that, where a Syrian boy was violently attacked by classmates. Tommy Robinson and co. distorted that and basically smeared the victim. So I wouldn't entirely trust Tommy Robinson. I don't think he's a bogeyman, but I wouldn't entirely trust him. Hey, Cameron, I'm afraid your timings. I was going to leave pretty soon. I'll tell you what, I'll wait. I'll round this up to 40 minutes because I was going to just round this off, but you've just joined. So, do you have any questions, Cameron, or anything you'd like to comment on, talk about? What do you think, Declan? What's your views on Tommy Robinson? I just think some say, Tommy Robinson, because he's working class, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt that some middle class people who say the same things would. There may be some truth in that. Um, but I don't know. I've honestly mixed views on Tommy Robinson. I mean, put it this way, I wouldn't fully endorse him. By the same token, I wouldn't fully vilify him. What's my views on Piers Morgan? Yeah, I pretty much agree with you, Cameron. I've actually got a book by Piers Morgan, The Insider Diaries. Or I think that's the title, something like that, when he was editor of the Daily Mirror. There is a few. I mean, with me, it's not so much his opinions. I agree with a lot of his opinions, and I quite admire even the way he stood up to the American gun lobby when he was working over there. I think that took a degree of courage. If you know anything about American gun politics, speak out on it. Does take some courage. But I totally agree. Morgan is profoundly arrogant. I mean, he invites people on to Good Morning Britain. He doesn't let people get a word in sideways. So I think his temperament and his personality deflects from his opinions. I don't think he's stupid. I think he's quite, well, he is. He's clearly a smart individual. He's been around. He's interviewed some of the most powerful people in the world. He knows the industry inside out. But there's a number of things that don't like him. There's times he's a profound hypocrite. For example, he will pontificate about Islamic extremism, valid, but then he will denounce someone else for doing exactly the same thing, and he'll make them out to be an Islamophobic bigot, even though he's done exactly the same thing. And it's just obnoxious the way he talks over people. Um, but to be honest, it's the industry as well as partly to blame. Did you see these good morning videos? They say like, watch Piers lose his temper, watch what Piers has to say. They clickbait to extremes. So they kind of fuel his personality and his ego. Susanna Reid can't get a word in sideways, although she's not entirely humble herself, at least not always, but she at least is more so than he is. I mean, Morgan is just, I think he's a deeply polarizing figure for that reason. Kay Hopkins, yeah, vile individual. For me, it's nothing to do with politics, actually, although she's pretty far right. I honestly think optics are a big thing. In the case of Katie Hopkins, she genuinely comes across as lacking any human empathy for anyone. It's not just that she's on PT. I can accept that, but I remember she once described migrants as cockroaches. Now, whatever people's views on the migrant issue, to describe other human beings that way is disgusting. Um, yeah, I've no time for Katie Hopkins. Ian Paisley, the late Ian Paisley, he was a bit of a demagogue, bit of a rabble rouser, but not stupid. An interesting thing about Ian Paisley was he was obviously the arch unionist, yet he was actually quite popular with nationalist farmers who were Eurosceptic. This is the irony. Paisley was re-elected many times, and a large part of his constituency was Catholic. So he's one of those figures that can't be so easily dismissed. But certainly he was a demagogue. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all about that regarding Katie Hopkins. I agree, he does make accurate points, but his temper really gets the better of him, and he made himself really hated. This is what I don't get. Someone like Piers Morgan, he's filthy rich, he's famous, he's successful. So what does he get so angry about? I mean, it's one thing having strong opinions, but here's the thing about Piers Morgan. I don't know how much conviction he actually has. I sometimes think he works himself up just for the cameras. I'm starting to think that. I think he just likes to be controversial. He will disagree with someone even if he secretly agrees with them, just for good television. So yeah, I think the most infuriating thing about people like Piers Morgan is empowerment. Recently Morgan and Susanna Reid, they came out with this. I forget what the subject was. I think it was yeah, it was that protest on Britain's Got Talent that a lot of people complained about, the Black Lives Matter thing. Now they were pontificating away and saying, "Oh, these people are ignorant," blah blah blah. They didn't allow anyone to have a retort. Now, whatever people think of that, there should be a right to a reply. So I just find that extremely obnoxious, and it looks like an abuse of power. I would have loved to see David Williams humiliate Jeremy Kyle. Was that a few years ago? I think it was. I know there was a thing where there was kind of a skit done on Jeremy Kyle. The only thing is, he would have been in on it. So, frankly, I would have preferred that Kyle was taken by surprise. 7 people have now logged in. Um, well, I was going to close this up to him, but anyway, I agree, Declan. Katie is Val. Hello, Ali. Welcome. I think this is the first time you've logged in. Um, I'll tell you what, guys, I'll give it a few more minutes. I was going to round this up because I am tired, but just as I'm about to log out, other people come in. So, do you have any questions, Ali? Dominic, thoughts on patriotic alternative? I don't know what that is. Is that a website or a party or? I'm sorry, I really don't know what patriotic alternative is. I'll give this to about 45, 46. Sorry, Dominic, I simply haven't heard of them, so can't really form an opinion. But honestly, I think a lot of people in the public eye, certainly people like Piers Morgan, it's an ego thing. And I suppose in their profession, there's a degree of ego involved. You get other successful journalists like Andrew Marr who ask tough questions, but they just tend to do it in a much more or much less obnoxious way. Yeah, no problem, Ali. I do this pretty regularly now, so there'll be plenty of chances. Um, okay, guys, I'll bring this up to 45 minutes. So about another minute. Um, Cameron, Declan, thanks for your contribution. Um, Part led by Mark Collette. They pulled the line. Oh, that one, yeah. Well, my take on that was the f- the response to it was disproportionate. I remember that thing, the banner over Burnley Football Club. Personally, I wouldn't have done it because I don't think you beat Black Lives Matter by just going to the other side of things. White lives matter, white lives do matter, so do Black Lives Matter. But I probably wouldn't endorse them, but I would say this: the response to that was telling, and I think that I am not a fan of Black Lives Matter. I think they're a very polarizing movement. I think they've got racist elements, and I think it was inevitable that there was going to be a response at some point. And I think the fact that what's ironic about that was there was The police were contacted, and yet they had to admit that no crime had been committed, so no charges could be made. But I would be very, very wary about any movement that is based on race, whether it's Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter or anything like that. I mean, the principle should be that all lives matter, but that's it. Um, I mean, we've had cases in this country, three young white lads murdered for being white. So I get very angry when I hear this notion of white privilege. Nevertheless, I would still be wary about even white identity movements because you could run the risk of it's a little bit. That's why I don't endorse MRA movements, men's rights activists. Although I believe in men's rights, I think sometimes they're guilty of just going to the other extreme of feminists. You know, like you get some feminists who are quite misandric, and very, they're all about male bashing. Well, some MRAs are a little bit, maybe not misogynistic, but they can be a bit, have a chip on the shoulder, and they also speak about women in generalized terms. So I think I'm a centrist. That's what I am. So I'm always wary of extremes on either side. Hope the Orange Madman is voted out. No mystery for guessing who that is. I agree, Declan. I wouldn't say easily win, no. I don't think all the polls suggest Biden's leading, but I think it's going to be close. I don't think either will win easily. Piers Morgan, yeah. What countries have you visited and what's the one you like the most? Well, that's quite an in-depth question, but I've visited quite a few countries in my life, in no particular order. Outside the United Kingdom, I visited the Republic of Ireland, Canada, the United States, Greece, Turkey, Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic, China. So about 13 countries. I don't know if I was in the Vatican State. I don't know if I actually went into it or not. I was in Kuala Lumpur Airport, but I'm not sure I can include Malaysia. What did I like the most? Well, I have the most experience of China, and I've got some very good memories from there. Politics aside, I hate the Chinese government, but I'd probably have to say China simply because that's where I have the most experience. Doesn't mean it's my favorite country, but it is the one I have the most experience in, altogether about a year living and working in. Okay, guys, 48 minutes now. I'll bring this up to 50 minutes. Can I speak another language? My second language is probably Chinese. I can get by on basic conversation, but still relatively elementary. And I know schoolboy French, Italian, Spanish, the European languages. I'd like to learn Italian maybe or Spanish. French is beautiful, but the thing I find French a bit difficult because of all the little accents. Um, but my second language is probably Chinese. I could say cheers in about 20 languages. Raymond, do I like Oswald Mosley? If I had to give a simple answer, I'd say no. The man was a fascist. And, in the 1930s, he was on the wrong side of history. I know sometimes people like to retrospectively look back, but Mosley was on the wrong side of history. Has Chinese culture influenced you in any way when you were living there? That's a good question. Um, well, I endorse it on some level, insofar as I believe in when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I tried to speak the language. I didn't hang around with other Westerners. I spent most of my time with Chinese friends. Um, and I certainly knew a lot about the culture, the history, and so on. But in terms of has it influenced me, probably not. I'm still a Westerner, in my mind. Um, but I think you can appreciate a culture without being necessarily influenced by it. Um, but then again, I'm talking about culture here. The politics, I guess, has influenced me insofar as I'm so against it. I've been consistently opposed to the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah, it's a very, very difficult situation in Hong Kong. And I really believe that with that situation, China broke the Sino-British joint declaration. I remember seeing a talk by Chris Patten, the last governor of Hong Kong, essentially the last governor of the British Empire. And I met some young Hong Kongers in Newcastle that were demonstrating. It's like any movement, they have to be careful about, rioting. It can be bad optics. But the thing is, millions of people protested at the start of last year, and Chinese state media ignored it. They only started covering it when there was trouble. But I think there is a lot of ground for us to distance our ties to China as a nation. A lot of ground. And that's just one example. The fact that Beijing has broken the Sino-British Joint Declaration. If you're not familiar with this, it was signed in 1984 and it was supposed to guarantee autonomy for Hong Kong until 2050. But basically, the CCP, the Chinese government, has eroded that in every way they can. Okay, guys, I'm really going to have to round this up. I do appreciate you all logging in, asking questions. Um, I'm open to anything. I'll answer anything, um, pretty much, with the exception of maybe some personal stuff, but that's it. Thanks for your contribution. Have a good evening, everyone. And I'll quickly answer this last one. Do you reckon if Oswald Mosley was in charge, would World War II been prevented? Certainly not World War II, because remember, even if he'd been Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, we're one country. Even being a superpower at that time, I don't think World War II would have been prevented because at some point, the Soviet Union and the United States would probably still have been dragged in. So no, I don't think World War II would have been prevented. And I do believe that it still stands the test of time as a just war, an awful war, but just war. Um, so no, I don't think it would have been prevented. I think had Mosley been in charge, if anything, we would have become a vassal state of Germany. Probably Mosley would have done some sort of pact with Hitler, but he would certainly have been the junior partner. I don't think Mosley had the power that Hitler had, even if at his peak in the 30s when he was getting, I think 10,000 people filled Earl's Court. So no doubt about it, Mosley had significant power at his peak, but never the power that Hitler had. So even had Mosley been prime minister, I think it would have been the junior partner. But that's just my perception. We'll never know. It's one of those what ifs. Okay, guys, take care. Have a good evening, and thanks for your contribution. I'm not sure when the next one will be. This is very sporadic, but there you have it. Thanks for your time. Cheers.